Hi, I'm Mindy Martell, President of Clothier Design Source, and welcome to the Clothier Roundtable.
Hi, I'm Kelly Kronberg. I am a design manager here at Clothier Design Source.
And today I wanted to just have a chat with you about what were some of the surprises that you had when you entered the industry. I know I had a lot. So entering the apparel industry, when you really got your first job in product development or design, what surprised you?
A lot of things surprised me. I would have to say a couple of them being, just the amount of product that you did design and how much would actually go to market, and then from there how much would actually get purchased from buyers to then end up in retail stores. So I would say...
Can you give us an example of numbers?
Yeah.
Like approximate?
Of course. So I would say if I designed 100 styles for a knit line, maybe then 50 to 75 of them would actually get shown at market. And then from there, maybe 4 to 10 of them would get purchased. So there was a lot of over-design.
So just to break that down,
Yes.
what you just said, so you designed 100 and maybe 4 to 10 would actually hit stores.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is shocking, actually. I mean, that's like 4 to 10%
Right.
of the work you did actually made it into stores.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a huge number, and it does vary depending on the lines that were developed. That was for our knit line. So I would say the sweater line was a little more. There was a little more.
Higher.
More made it to retail stores than that. But so there was a lot of over designing that happened, and with that over designing, all of the work that goes into it. So I mean, even to get prototypes or salesman samples from the factories, you have to provide them with a ton of information. You can't just say, can you make me a shirt or can you make me a tank top? So there's a lot of specs that need to be called out. There's a lot of fabric and trims that are going to be used that need to be called out. So all of that information was provided for all of those styles.
Yeah.
So it's
I think
definitely a lot of work that goes into it.
Yes. I think you hit a pretty good subject on. It's shocking how much work it is. People don't realize. I think people think, oh, I'm going to be a designer and I'm going to draw a pretty picture and then I'm going to show it to the factory and the factory is going to make it and then we're going to sell it and that's the end, right?
Right.
And
definitely
it's
not how it works.
Right. Which, I guess, little plug for our 4-step process. Like why we have our 4-step process is to make sure people understand what steps need to be taken. But that's a good one. That's surprising. I think for me, one thing that was really surprising when I entered the industry, and it took me actually kind of an embarrassingly long time to grasp it, but the difference between knits and wovens, I mean, I knew the difference between knits and woven fabric, but the difference between what it means for the industry, it took me a long time to grasp it to the, where, I mean, now I know the difference is you probably should use a different pattern maker, you probably should use a different sewer, you probably should use... you're going to use a different fabric vendor. You're going to use a different factory. The whole world really splits. I'm going to use my favorite word of the day, bifurcates. The whole world really bifurcates from knit to woven. It is two different worlds, two different paths, two different talents. And I think that's a big surprise. When I was coming out of design school, I didn't realize that. I knew there was a difference, but I didn't understand how huge the difference was.
Right. Especially at factory level. So when you said about, you're going to use a different factory or a different sewer to sew a knit or a woven, I mean, that's huge. There's factories that specialize in knits and there's factories that specialize in wovens. And I would say that was definitely a surprise for me as well, too.
Yeah, it's like they don't really teach us that in school.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
And I think, new brand owners and new designers get surprised by that, if you're going to have an outerwear jacket that's woven and then you're going to have a t-shirt that's knit, you're probably going to end up dealing with two different factories. And that's just how it is,
Yeah.
I always kind of talk about it like, drywall, like a construction worker that's good at putting drywall up, and then another construction worker who's like good at laying bricks, right? Like you wouldn't hire the bricklayer to put up drywall because they have two different skill sets.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, it took me a long time to kind of piece that together in my head. Yeah. So what else surprised you?
Let's see. So I guess, I did do a lot of sweater development as well, and I think all the different knits and gauges and, just different weaves to construct a sweater, and again, a different factory setup for sweaters.
Specializes in different
and sweater knits, and
I suppose they specialize in different
yarns
or what's the word?
Like pointelli.
Yeah, like the different types of knits.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's different knits when it comes to sweaters then as well. So it's even different. There's factories that are set up to do research and development for that yarn as well. And so some even specialize in a particular yarn. Like some might only work with 100% acrylic yarns for sweaters, and some might only do, a specific 100% cotton 1x1 rib sweater. So I think that was a huge thing initially that I learned was the various types of sweater knits. I would say another surprising thing on the product development side is how important it is. Not that it was very surprising, but it's just something that I always knew that developing your product was important, but just not to the, working here, how important it is for a brand owner, like making sure that they take all the necessary steps for development. So I've seen a lot of small brands that have come here that have wasted tens of thousands of dollars already prior to, and they think they're ready to go into manufacturing. And they come here and I'm like, well, we have to kind of backtrack a little bit. This isn't a production-friendly garment that you're showing here. It's going to cost you a lot of money to actually produce this garment. The trims that you're using aren't production-friendly, and so just the whole production-friendliness side of product development was, especially coming here, because at my old position, it was a lot of, me handing the factory a tech pack and not understanding the whole manufacturing side of it.
Right.
So I think that was a surprising thing for me.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to make sure it's ready. I guess what's another thing? There's another thing we thought was surprising is timelines, right?
Yeah.
So again, it just kind of comes down to we thought it was easier. We thought it was easier than it really is, and developing apparel, is really like developing anything else. It's like developing a prototype of a new car. You still have to go through the same process, right? You're developing a new gizmo or gadget or electronic or, it still is like the same process of over design, design way more than you're going to end up with. So you have a lot of ideas out there. Narrow it down to what's sticking, and then you have to go through the process of prototyping and testing, and so it is just a long process, and the timeline, I know it is changing in the industry. You've got these fast fashion brands that can kind of whip things out in a matter of months, but they're just copying stuff. So that's different. So if you're designing something new, the timeline in the industry is like a year, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of surprising.
Right.
Like,
you're always developing or designing for a year prior from now. So it's definitely very surprising, and like to in the summer, be working on summer for that next season, and
right.
or even sometimes developing summer in the middle of winter. So it's kind of
Yeah.
making sure you're able to switch your brain.
That's always
like
challenging too,
Mhm.
isn't it?
Right.
Like, well, we live in Minnesota,
Mhm.
so it's challenging if it's summer here and it's 85 degrees out and I'm going to the beach on the weekend. I might be designing for winter of the following year at that time. So you have to kind of switch your
Right,
brain, your
right.
mindset into, okay, what do I want to wear in the winter? Because
Right.
it's like 90 degrees outside right
Right.
now. So
Exactly.
sometimes it's challenging.
Even timeline on the other side of product development, so timeline to get your fabric made. I'm working with knit downs for a particular stripe pattern. It takes them maybe a day or maybe 2 days to even set up their machines to make that knit down for you. So having that to look at and approve, and making those small changes within a pattern or a repeat when it comes to prints or stripes, that takes more than just a couple hours to do that. So it's just thinking about all that stuff that goes into the product development.
I think another thing that's surprising is, well, when I entered the field, everyone's dream is to be the apparel designer, right? And then I found out I actually fell in love with tech design, and realized like that became one of my passions, is understanding how much the devil is in the details, really, right? Like you can draw a picture of the same shirt, but then depending on what fabrics you use, what construction methods you use, which trims you choose, how it fits, like where all those tech design decisions happen, you can end up with a completely different shirt. You can end up with a Walmart shirt and a Nordstrom shirt, right? With just the tech designer's decisions. And so I really kind of fell in love with that, and not only that, is just understanding how many different things there are to specialize in the industry, how many different jobs there are, and people that take part in building apparel. It's just a massive network of different people specializing in all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Like here, how many positions do we have?
Yeah, we have people that specialize in sourcing. So we have a whole department that focuses just on sourcing your materials or your trims. We have people that specialize in tech design. So those are the people that are really thinking about how your garment is going to be sewn together while they're designing it, which is kind of another surprising thing about tech, is you actually have to think about, okay, how are these two seams going to be sewn? So just because you're putting a seam down the middle or down the side, you have to make sure it's something that can actually
Makes sense.
That makes sense, exactly.
Right.
There's people that specialize in pattern making. That's a very specialized field. There's great pattern makers out there, and it's a really, I feel like that's kind of one of the smaller fields that
it's a highly talented field too.
Especially especially in our within Clothier Design Source, just because of the variety of projects that come through and the variety of garments that we are designing. But a few other areas of is even just the research and development area. There's people that specialize just in the research. You want a specific garment to function a special way, you have to spend a lot of time researching that.
And there's, we kind of talked about it earlier, but there's sewers and they're specialized, and they're even more specialized in what machines they can sew on and what fabrics they can sew with. So within the sewing field, it becomes bifurcated into all these different specialized areas. Do you know that word?
I have no idea what you're even saying.
I've always wanted to use that word.
What is bifurcate? Can I just,
have no
ask
idea.
that question? Do you even know?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
So, a snake. Why am I talking? So, a snake's tongue is bifurcated.
Split in two?
It's split in two.
Okay.
Right? So, you can use that word for anything that splits into two.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Now can we circle back on where you should use this so I can like...
so I used it in the knit and woven.
Okay.
So, like the
Bifurcated they are.
apparel industry.
They're both
is-
fabrics, but
Right. The apparel industry is bifurcated
Okay.
into knit or woven.
Okay.
Like a snake's
Mhm.
tongue, Kelly.
Duh. Can we give a little blurb about what that means in your description?
You know, one reason I wanted to talk about what was surprising for us
Mhm.
when we entered the industry is, you know, we went to
Connect
school.
with people.
Yeah, to
Mhm.
connect with people, but we went to school for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the brand owners that are coming to us are going to be surprised by the same things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Mhm.
that's why one reason I wanted to talk about it
Mhm.
is like what surprises us is going to teach them so they're not surprised.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I think we were even, you know, quite a few steps ahead of them
Mhm.
because we went to school for the apparel industry, and many of our brand owners are just awesome entrepreneurs that
Right.
maybe didn't go to apparel school, but they're still going to have a lot of surprises when they enter the
Mhm.
industry. So I think that's, you know, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about it.
Mhm.
Hey, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you are thinking about starting a clothing line, you have a clothing line you need help with, check out clothierdesignsource.com.